It sort of feels like when your uncle borrows like $20 from you and he calls it a loan, but you know you're not getting it back. But with the government, they're doing the same thing. It's just like better stationary. That's kind of where we live right now. If you haven't heard yet, the Real ID Act was passed. Don't let this shock you, but it was passed in 2005. That's when we passed it. 2005, you understand? Now, the scrutiny, obviously, that came from 9/11, we looked back over things, we were like, the Real ID Act, this is the way to go. Why am I talking about the Real ID Act if it passed in 2005? Well, we're about to get it into action because, as with all government things that passed 20 years ago, we're going to roll this ball out. Be ready. It's a coming, I swear to you. Yeah. Either way, now the reason that we're talking about this and the whole world's talking about it is because the TSA has said, listen, if you don't have a real ID, we're going to charge you for it. That's right. $5. So if you show up at the airport, you can get on a plane, but it's going to cost you $45 more than it costs anyone else who has a real ID, because that $45 is what it's going to take for the government to prove that you're you. So let me get this right. 2005 is when you passed it after 9/11, because it took, a minute to get that done. And then the 20 years later, we're ready to launch. So if you got this right, the iPhone has been produced, it grew up, it had kids and sent them to college in less time, fewer years. It's kind of a bad deal, but it's the government, so you get what you get. So starting February 1st, if you hop on a plane and you don't have the real ID or the verified passport, you're screwed. It's $45. That's what it costs you to fly. $45 to prove you are who you say you are. Now listen, I've been in some parts of the city that I live in, and for $45, I'll not only get a new ID, but I'll get a backstory. You're not even giving me that for $45. I don't understand why you keep wanting so much money out of me. It smells like extortion. So $45 if you don't have it. And they're talking about, they went to Congress and they were like, listen, I'm going to have at least $18 per person to cover the government incurred costs, you understand, to make sure someone is who they say they are. Okay. So they went to the government and said, hey, we're going to need $18 to make sure that you're you. The government returned to us a bill of $45 because they determined that it was going to be far more. But here's what I don't understand. And I'm not even one of those government guys that's going to whine about the government nonstop. That's not my jelly roll. But here's what I want to know. One part of the same government said you could do it for $18, and you decided it was going to take $45 for what? Right now, I can go get on a plane. I basically need a driver's license, a passport, something that says I'm me, and we move on about our business. I don't pay them any extra money for this. Now what you're trying to tell me is they need $45 to prove I'm me. That's a lot. That's a lot. Math is hard. I understand. So the fee is $45 for what you're already getting paid to do. So basically, we're tipping for them to check our shoes. It sounds like a tip. It feels like I'm at Jimmy John's trying to order a sub, but I got to get through the tipping process before I can get a number one with extra cheese, no tomatoes, light mayo. Is it a Pepe or a Pepe? I don't know. May 2025. Everything is in, but February 1's when this starts, so make sure you got. They're saying right now that 94% of us are already using it. So basically what we're doing is we're watching our government in front of us shake down the other 6%. It's like, hey, you got bus money? I mean, that's exactly what's happening right here. Let's not kid ourselves. The TSA is saying, and I have notes here. I know the show is called Not Scripted, but I do have notes here because this is factual stuff and I can't remember it all. TSA says we have to ensure everyone who flies is who they say they are. The fee will come from the traveler, not the taxpayer. That's a fine line we're drawing, because even when I'm traveling, I'm a taxpayer. I don't understand the government sometime. I don't. So the other IDs that you have, by the way, will no longer be compliant. That's the latest from TSA. I'm sure by next week they'll figure out a way to charge us for breathing in their terminal. They wonder why we don't like them. My name is Bud Ford, and this is not scripted. I do use a script. Basically, in the script, what I'm doing is just getting the factual stuff out. I made my living on the radio, in television. I'm a meteorologist. I spent my entire life on a microphone, some way, shape, or form. It's my favorite art form. I also like comedy clubs, in which I get a chance to participate on occasion. Bottom line is, you're getting honest talk from a Southern storyteller. That's what I do. I've seen a little bit of everything, tried some of it, and ultimately I try to find the funny in everything. Even when it may not be funny, it's funny to me. So that's what I do. So I appreciate you spending some time with me. And if you got comments about the show or whatever, right, that's cool. Put them where they should go. This week, big stuff. Ole Miss losing their coach for LSU. They gained a mortgage payment or whatever. So I'm looking at this, and typically I don't sit around and ramble about football, because if I could, I'd do it all day, because it's my favorite thing on the planet. I think I'm better at it than I am in relationships. But when I saw this Lane Kiffin thing, I think it's interesting. If you missed it, or even if it's not your jelly roll, Lane Kiffin announces on Sunday that he's leaving Ole Miss after 6 seasons, which you probably heard, to become the new coach at LSU. Now, Lane Kiffin leaving Ole Miss for LSU is kind of, if you think it through, the SEC version of switching cell phone carriers, because they offered Lane a free upgrade or something. He's basically done that. He's been to Alabama, Ole Miss, and Ole Miss kind of helped him rebuild his credibility, if you don't know. And they allowed him to, or he in turn built them a program that has been pretty effective and heading into the college football playoffs. But that's not the funny part to me. The funny part is that he managed to hold the entire television, sports, ESPN, everybody and their mama that talks about sports, hostage until he made a decision. Remember, LeBron was famous for that back in the day. It's interesting to me that we've now reached the point in college football that's what's happening. And the other thing that bothers me, I'm going to go on the record and say it, I'm a Mississippi State grad. So the fact that he's leaving Ole Miss does not break my heart. Now, if he was going to Ole Miss, or from Ole Miss to Mississippi State, well, that would make it much sweeter to me. I don't understand why he chose LSU. I understand they offered him a lot of money, but I kind of felt like, wouldn't you think Ole Miss would have said, well, you know, we are only paying you $9 million a year, and it is hard to live here right off Highway 72 in Mississippi for only that kind of money. I mean, that's not a lot of money. That's not a lot of money at all. So $9 million don't go like it used to in Mississippi. I get that. I'm a Mississippi State grad. If anybody knows how far $9 million goes, now, it ain't my coach. I promise you that. He may never see that. A coach of Mississippi State can work for 20 years and not make $9 million. I'm just kidding. They ain't going to win much, though. I'll tell you that. We had a pretty good season. Pete Golding is the defensive coordinator. And he was immediately named, if you missed this at Ole Miss, the head coach. I mean, the ink hasn't even dried good. I mean, that's how fast a school will move when they don't want to pay Lane Kiffin money anymore. They just immediately, they're making decisions like, we are cutting now. We ain't going no further today. Cutting now. Also, Kiffin, if you haven't kept up with it, I may have mentioned a little bit of this, but one of the most successful runs in Ole Miss history, including 4 double-digit win seasons. That's a lot. And this year's record, of course, is 11-1, which is incredible. Because this ain't like playing in the ACC. I mean, this isn't powder puff football. This is actually real football. So the SEC, my ACC friends are like, come on, bruh, you don't got to be that way about the ACC. I don't have to be. I choose to be. Y'all are the SpongeBob SquarePants of cartoons. It's a joke over there. Come on, man. Clemson is the best you got to offer in any given year, including this one. They can suck pond water. Now, I realize they had a good couple of years as champions and all. Well, that was before Dabo Swinney realized he doesn't understand the portal. And until someone realizes that Dabo Swinney is the problem, y'all gonna have to put a bullet in this man. I mean that. Obviously, I don't mean that for real, but it's time. And it's odd for Clemson anyway, because I've been following them since I was a kid, and very rarely do they keep a coach long enough after they win a national championship to win another one. Ask Danny Ford. That's what we always said about Danny Ford. We always had a few jokes about him. You know, you could tell if he was lying. That's when his lips were moving. That's how. But I don't want to bring up old Danny Ford wounds. I'm just saying. All right, so they're looking at Ole Miss as hosting a first-round college football playoff game in December. And they told Lane, bruh, you got to go, bro. You're going to LSU. I mean, not even letting him do the last game, but there's a lot of questions about that, too. Should he be allowed to do the last game? I'd be in favor of him not. As a Mississippi State grad, I think he needs to be out of there immediately. Is there any way that we can look back and take all the winning games that he had this year and make a losses? Anything we can do to help the SEC out? Because I'd like to win that. He did wish the Ole Miss players good luck. Said he understands the AD's decision. I get all that. On the way to the airport, Kiffin told ESPN he felt like he'd accomplished enough at Ole Miss and it was time for a new chapter. That chapter's titled 13 Million Reasons Why I'm Leaving. The chapter, in case you're wondering. Now, he did talk to some serious NFL guys who have gone through this, or college guys that went to NFL that came back to college, so they get it. He was talking to Pete Carroll, who's 74, and Nick Saban, also 74. And their response to him was, take the shot! When you talk to Pete Carroll and Nick Saban about this decision, it's not really mentorship. It's sort of consulting ancient scrolls. It's not really, you can't really call that mentorship at that age. But you got to realize that they've been giving the same advice since Moses was in the transfer portal. So there's a lot going on here. I understand why he consulted those two. I'm anxious to see how this plays out, though. And I also wonder, has he thought about this yet? Because, again, being a Mississippi State grad, I understand the state of Mississippi and the state of Mississippi, if you will. But I've been to LSU enough to know y'all got a beautiful bridge over a lot of water that I think suspect anyway. And I got a ticket coming off of that bridge, which I'm still mad about because I don't know that I was speeding. I'm pretty sure I was caught by a hillbilly with a bubble gum on the top, and he just said he must be speeding. I mean, I didn't say nothing about the speed I was doing on the bridge. I'm saying when I come off the bridge, but whatever. What else is there in Louisiana I'm missing? I know the beauty of taking the job. I'm not stupid. You get to choose from the entire state. Who else is picking up the college football, the top 4 and 5 recruits that are coming out of the state? Well, they're being recruited by Alabama, and they're being recruited by LSU. And their family wants them to go to LSU, I guarantee. So it's one of those deals. That's the game we're playing. I guess I see that from a recruiting standpoint and from a money standpoint. They moved him from $9 million to something like $13 million a year. Do you make that call? Well, I do. I mean, I'm broke a lot, so I have to make decisions that Lane don't make. I mean, I've had a toilet that's been running for a week, and I had to decide that now I'm going to have to fix it myself. I thought I was going to call the plumber, but I don't got Lane Kiffin money. So good luck to him. Good luck to LSU's accounting department because somebody's going to have to explain that salary to somebody in the state of Louisiana. They may not understand it. And if tuition goes up next semester, I want you LSU students to know that it's not the books that's your problem. It's Lane Kiffin's airboat. Those are not cheap. And by the way, I don't want you to take this the wrong way. You're still in Louisiana. Let that sink in a minute. I spent a lot of time in Louisiana. One time I remember back when we first got GPS, I was driving through Louisiana. I wasn't bothering nobody, minding my own business. And I realized my GPS at some point just stopped. Like it just stopped. Not there was not like it had nothing. It looked at me. I pushed buttons. It said nothing. So I realized this is probably not the place I need to be. And I turned around. I jokingly say that, but I did get offered a couple of jobs in the state of Louisiana multiple times, and multiple times it wasn't for me for whatever reason. It's a pretty state, but I thought about that, and I thought about what would what would force someone to do that other than the money. And when I'm thinking about Lane, I don't know. For me, I know that when my GPS is not able to figure out where I'm at, I usually look for another place to go. And I know all that's changed now. But I was talking to a buddy of mine here in the neighborhood, and he was talking to me about riding his motorcycle. And I'm also a rider, and he's from Canada. So he was telling me that him and his wife have toured the United States. Well, I've done that. And I thought, okay, that's cool. And then he said, on a motorcycle. Well, it's a little different when I do it because I crank up a motorcycle in South Carolina and I ride to where I'm going to ride, right? Well, he cranks it up in Saskatchewan or Manitoba or wherever, and then he drives down. So he's 16 hours from getting here anyway. Then he gets here, and him and his wife, they camp. They carry their sleeping bags with them and tents. And they put all that down and they stay right there at different various campgrounds or wherever. And then when they get in the U.S., they tour and they just keep going. So it's insanity. So he showed me all the roads, kind of the roads that he traveled. They don't really do interstates either. So he kind of drew them out for me on a map, and it was insane. And then I got to thinking as I spent a little more time talking with him, most of those trips were made, he told me, on a 1982 Honda Goldwing. Now, if you were a 2000 or beyond, then when I said 1980s, all you heard was everything was in black and white, tires still square. I get all that. I get it all. Anything that started with 19 something is that. I understand. But I assure you, it was a different time when they were doing that touring. They left their homes with no way to contact anyone, basically. I know there were phones around, but now you're talking about international calling because they were in the U.S. And then it was pretty much they're on a motorcycle sleeping on the ground with no GPS. And his answer was, and it's the same way I toured too, his answer was, I come out of a street and I ask my wife which way we go. And we turn whichever way that is, and we just go till we turn somewhere else because we didn't have GPS back then. You didn't even know it until a state sign popped up that you had crossed into another state. And I thought that is an interesting way to think of travel today because I did this a lot when I was young, but I cannot imagine today leaving out of my house and being like, you know what, I'm probably good. I ain't going to need to contact anybody for a while. I'm just going to turn my phone off and all. I don't feel good about that anymore. But in those days, it never occurred to me. You never felt as small as you do now with all of the technology. It's really weird. Back then, you kind of handled your own business. If your mother wasn't right there or there wasn't a figure to give you the answer, you faked it till you made it. And it's just interesting to think people nowadays would not consider doing that. Thank you for your time. Thanks for spending some time with me today. We'll do it again tomorrow. My name is Bud like the beer, Ford like the truck. You can find me at Bud Ford Comedy.